الحمد لله صلى الله وسلم وبارك على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Last class on Al-Lu'lu' Marjan, we were discussing the chapter إنما الماء من الماء أو الماء من الماء. Water is only from water. Water is only from water. No water unless there's water. There doesn't have to be water until there's water. We explained that in detail. Those who weren't here, we will not repeat it again. Those who were here, we should have made the necessary review and revision, whereas we carefully, slowly, step by step, repeatedly mention it several times, the proper understanding of that concept. The proper understanding of that concept. Taking a faidah before we move on to the next chapter, النووي رحمه الله says اعلم أن الأمة مجتمعة الآن على وجوب الغسل بالجماع وإن لم يكن معه إنزال وعلى وجوبه بالإنزال وكان جماعة من الصحابة على أنه لا يجب إلا بالإنزال ثم رجع بعضهم وانعقد الإجماع بعد الآخرين. He says here, know for sure that right now, speaking in his time, the 7th century of the Islamic calendar, he says that the Ummah, all of the Muslims, ulama, fuqaha, all of them, and that's a مسألة أصولية. ما المقصود بالإجماع؟ هل هو إجماع مجتهدي عصر من العصور، يعني المجتهدين في الأمة العلماء والفقهاء، ولا الإجماع بمعنى أن كل فرد من أفراد المسلمين، وهكذا. مسألة خلافية معروفة في كتب الأصول، ولكل من القولين ما يترتب عليه من مسائل وأحكام وثمرات ومشاكل. فيحسن بطالب العلم أن يراجع هذه الكتب وأن يديم النظر فيها، وأن لا يغفل الممارسة التطبيق الفعل الممارسة لهذه المسائل والأصول والقواعد. ليس فقط يحفظ ويردد ويكرر، وإنما يمارس يطبق في كتب الشروحات، في كتب الفقه المقارن، بل حتى في كتب المذهب الواحد يطبق ما قد أتقن نظريا. الآن جاء وقت التطبيق العملي. خير إن شاء الله. And now he says that the Ummah is in total agreement, total consensus, that when there is sexual intercourse, there must be ghusl. Even if there is no reaching of climax, even if there's no ejaculation, if a person doesn't finish, doesn't come to the end. Point number 2, which is also an issue of ijma', I know he says, the Muslims also agree is that there is ghusl when there is climax and when there is inzal, when there is reaching of climax in sexual intercourse. Point number 3, he says, and there was at one point in time a group of Sahaba who held the view, who had the madhab, that the ghusl is only mandatory based off of ejaculation and reaching climax. He says, Allahu Alam, An-Nawawi says, Raja'a. He says they recanted and retracted those views, and he went along with the rest of the Muslims, and he says that there's now total ijma'. He says now there's total ijma'. Now, another very important issue is, and this is, I'm not necessarily saying this about this, but in general, and it's a haqq yuqal, is that you have to be very careful when you hear the word ijma'. Ijma', for many people, and many madhabs, and many times, they've made it a cheap word. They've made it cheap. Ijma', consensus, no difference of opinion, no agreement. And in reality, it's not the case. And there are many of the people of the past and of the present during their times that did hold different views. Everybody understand this? Or we have another issue which is very important, and that is al-ijma' min haythu al-jumla, or al-ijma' ala masail mu'ayyana. Is that there's ijma' on general rules and not every single rule. Everybody understand this? An example of this, just a brief example for the الراغبين في الاستفادة, the advanced students of knowledge we're talking to right now, is the concept of blood. You read in many books of shuruh and fiqh and hadith, they say وَالدَّمُ نَجَاسَةُ الدَّمِ بِالْإِجْمَاعِ. They say it's consensus that there is no difference of opinion that all blood is najis. طيب. And then many people that read this and they'll say, wow, the dalil is not strong, the dalil is weak, but there's ijma'. So they're afraid and to go against it. And we say that, is there ijma' that all blood is najis? Or is there ijma' on certain issues and certain types of blood? Everybody understand the difference? There's a huge difference between ijma' about the blood of menses, ijma' of the blood of the animal that's meta, and ijma' of the blood that comes from your fingertip when you get a paper clip. The ijma' that comes from a martyr, the shaheed. What are you going to do with that? How is the martyr's blood pure? He's buried in his clothes, he's not washed. How is his blood pure, but inside of his body, or it's the same blood that was in someone that wasn't in the battle? He wasn't a shaheed. How is his blood now tahir and his blood is najis? And it came out of one vein, one body. Everybody understand this? We're sitting here, I go out to fight jihad, I'm martyred, my blood is tahir. You don't go fight, your blood is najis. That's not consistent. Or the concept of the ma'la nafs sa'ila, a fly or fish or small insects that have blood but it doesn't flow, it doesn't pour. They say that's tahir. What's the farq? How are you making a difference now? Everybody understand this? Or the concept of yu'fa an yasiri biqadr ad-dirham. If it's like a coin, if it's like a piece of gold, then it's okay. But if it's bigger than that, no. What is it? Is it najis? Is it a little bit, a lot? And the list goes on. So what's meant by those who mention that there's ijma'? Did they mean they're all blood, or they were talking about specific issues, suwar ma'ayyana? So you have to be very careful with tulab al-ilm when you hear the word ijma'. And there's some scholars who are more who are more thorough than others when they narrate the ijma'. Some are mutasahil, relaxed. And there's some which are completely thorough. Khairan, inshallah. So therefore he says, is that the Sahaba, they recanted those views. Those who had that opinion, they recanted it. And now there's the ijma'. Is that when you have sexual intercourse, you must make the ghusl. When the khitan touches the khitan, faqad wajib al-ghusl. There's ghusl now. Whether it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, ejaculation or not. Everybody understand this? And we explained this before, and this is crucially important. Because many Muslims are either too afraid to speak about it or to ask about it, or some people are just totally misinformed. And many Muslims, they feel and they think is that if I have sex with my wife and I don't have an orgasm, or my wife doesn't have an orgasm, there's no ghusl, and I can pray. So he makes fajr, dhuhr, asr, maghrib, isha, and he's junub. The next day, he takes a shower in the morning, not for ghusl janaba, shower for work, to be clean, to be fresh, without the proper intention. And he's still making 5 salah. That is what? Junub. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And there's no excuse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the knowledge is simple and is easily accessed. Simple and easily accessed. Everybody understand this? Khairan, inshallah. Moving forward, and that's a long discussion with regards to the people today of muftis, qadis, students of knowledge, scholars, how they teach the people, what they teach the people. Most classes, most khutbahs, most lectures, most masjids, the people are not being taught the fundamental things of Islam. They're not. In most cases. There are some, walillahi alhamd. There are plenty of people on YouTube teach different things, fundamental things. But the average masjid, the average daily 9 to 5 Muslim masjid, the classes that are being taught are not teaching the Muslims the fundamental things. And they're talking about this and that and so on and so forth. The average khutbah is very far from fundamental basic things that everybody understands. And that's unfortunate. That's musibah. So the mufti will be asked and the general people will be asked. The scholar will be questioned, and those who are behind the scholar, they'll be questioned too. Use your brain just a little bit, Yahi. Use your brain a bit. You've been a Muslim for 20 years. You've had this imam. What has he taught you of fundamentals? And you don't have the ability to ask yourself for the question. And you say, I was ignorant. I didn't know. He didn't teach me. Because you didn't think. You didn't use your brain. Allah tells us in the Quran Kareem vividly about this. لَوْ كُنَّا نَعْقِلُ. Allah says, if we had any sense, it says, what ish? Or if we could hear, they say what? He says, we wouldn't be among the people of the fire. You wouldn't be what? Of the people of the fire. So brains is of utmost importance to the Muslim. No matter how simple and basic you are, Allah gave you a brain. You don't have to be an alim or student of knowledge to know that you should use your brain sometime. Just think a little bit. Islam is based on 5 pillars. My imam hasn't taught me nothing of those 5 pillars. Every time my imam speaks and talks, he's not talking about the what? 5 pillars or the 6 articles of faith. And you continue to follow him. Pay him money. You continue to promote him and push them. You can't just blame it on him now. No, you have a problem as well. Everybody understand this? You have a what? You have a problem as well. Khairan, inshallah. So that's with regards to last week's class. Another fa'idah, which is a side note here, mas'ala far'iyya, fiqhiyya, is type. He says here, speaking about those hadiths that we read last week, قال العلماء العمل على هذا الحديث وأما حديث الماء من الماء فالجمهور من الصحابة ومن بعدهم قالوا إنه منسوخ ويعنون بالنسخ أن الغسل من الجماع بغير إنزال كان ساقطا ثم صار واجبا وذهب ابن عباس رضي الله عنه وغيره إلى أنه ليس منسوخا بل المراد به نفي وجوب الغسل بالرؤية في النوم إذا لم ينزل وهذا الحكم باق بلا شك. وأما حديث أبي بن كعب ففيه جوابان أحدهما أنه منسوخ والثاني أنه محمول على ما إذا باشرها فيما سوى الفرج والله أعلم. And then he goes on to speak about the issue with regards to most of the ulama saying, we have detailed hadiths, the specific hadiths, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Uthman, Zayd ibn Khalid, everybody understand this? And we have the issue. The issue what we previously said. With regards to, is it abrogated, was it cancelled or not? He then says here, as a side fa'idah, قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم يغسل ما أصابه من المرأة فيه دليل على نجاسة رطوبة فرج المرأة وفيها خلاف معروف والأصح عند بعض أصحابنا نجاستها ومن قال بالطهارة يحمل هذا الحديث على الاستحباب وهذا هو الأصح عند أكثر أصحابنا والله أعلم. He says here, speaking about the part of the hadith that said يغسل ما أصابه من المرأة, to make wudu and to wash any part of his body that was afflicted with the woman, anything from the woman. Okay, he says this hadith proves, and this is an issue here that is very important, and I've personally been asked several times in this masjid, outside of this masjid, on this issue. And there are many other things that branch off of this issue. And that is what the ulama of the past, the fuqaha called rutubat farj al-mar'ah. They say with regards to a woman and the discharge or the wetness or the moistness or the things that come from a woman. Is it najis or is it tahir? Is it pure or is it impure? This hadith proves that it's what? Impure. He clearly told him to do what? A wash. Any part of his body, his private area, his legs that touched a woman's, the woman's fluids or her discharge or her wetness fell upon him. So some of the ulama, they say, no, he says, this is one of their proofs to say that it's what? Najis. As we have systematically taught, once we have affirmed that a substance is najis, then there's now a what? a list of ahkam that what? Come into play. A list of ahkam. First ruling, najasa, this. You can't touch it. You can't do this. You can't do that. If it falls upon your clothes, you cannot, etc. Everybody understand this? And there are also a list of other things, such as the question that people ask all of the time with regards to a woman have to make wudu. Very common, widespread issue or problem among women. If there's some wetness in my underpants, do I have to make wudu? I'm making hajj, I'm making tawaf, I'm in ihram. Do I have to wash my underpants? Do I have to make the wudu? Does it break? Remember this? Mashal Ansar? And many other times they ask this question. Or let alone the concept of oral sex. Is it permissible or impermissible? If those who say that it's najasa, then the next thing is going to come is they're going to say that's what? It's impermissible because you're touching najis or najasa. Everybody understand this? وهكذا. So it's a list of rulings. Khayr inshallah. That's just a side benefit, to show us and improve us. Once again, that the sunnah of the Nabi al-Kareem is rich and bountiful. It's rich and it's bountiful. And there's so many things that we can take from one hadith. So many issues that we can branch off from what? From one hadith. Khayr inshallah. طيب. Moving on to the next chapter. The author, rahimahullah, Muhammad Fuad Abdul Baqi, the Sheikh, the compiler, he says, باب وجوب أو باب نسخ الماء من الماء ووجوب الغسل بالتقاء الختانين. Chapter number 22 states, the canceling of only sexual discharge makes bath obligatory. And then this is so confusing and choppy. How can you put 2 and 3 brackets and parentheses back to back? That doesn't make no sense. Everybody looking in the book? How many are there? 2 of them back to back. How do you make a complete sentence like that? One bracket, when the bracket is finished, is a what? Then you go into another robotic, mechanical, choppy translation. Type. It says here, it says sexual discharge bath made obligatory by order of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The bath becomes compulsory when male and female sexual organs come in close contact. It says here in Arabic, باب نسخ الماء من الماء ووجوب الغسل بالتقاء الختانين. It says the hadith or the ruling al-ma'u min al-ma', quote unquote, water is from water, is canceled. It's abrogated. It's no longer a ruling. It no longer what? Applies. At one point in time, it did apply. But what? It has been abrogated. It no longer what? Applies. Many of us, we understand the word abrogate, but we don't actually understand the concept. What does it mean to abrogate something? And some of us may not know what that word is. Abrogate. It's not a simple, basic, everyday used term unless you deal with certain things. What is abrogate? Abdicate. Abate. These words, It's not always commonly used. Okay? Abrogate means, naskh in Arabic, is that something was once halal. Something was once haram. Something was once prohibited. Based off of Quran and Hadith. Then a year later, a month later, the next day of the battle, 10 years later, it was another verse came down, another ayah was sent down, another surah was sent down. Or the Prophet ﷺ addressed the Sahaba in a hadith in which he canceled and did away with the previous ruling. Kuntu qad nahaytukum an ziyaratil qubur. He says, it was a time in which I told you don't visit the graves. Visiting the graves was what? Haram. Do not visit the graves, period. فَزُورُوهَا. He says, but now, visit them. فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُكُمُ الْآخِرَ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ. Because they remind you of the hereafter. So it was once what? Haram to visit the graves. Sometime afterwards, the Prophet now made it, at least halal. Maybe even recommended or obligatory. But at least we say what? It's mubah. It's permissible. It's mubah. It's what? It's mubah. Everybody understand this? It's jaiz. So therefore, we have how many rulings? In that one hadith. 2. Prohibited and now permissible. Everybody understand this? The Prophet ﷺ is speaking. He's making the authority. Whether we know of the previous hadith or not. He's telling you that it's now what? It's okay. There's no contradiction, but I've changed the what? The rules. I've changed the law. It's been now, it says nasikh and what? Mansukh. The ruling of visiting the graves, which was previously prohibited, is no longer applicable. Or even easier, this is changing the direction of the Qibla. It was once towards Jerusalem. And that's what the Muslims prayed. That ruling was what? قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. The verses in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, turn your face towards what? Masjid al-Haram. That ruling was what? Abrogated. It was cancelled. Mut'ah, as we took in Bulugh al-Maram, it was once permissible to have a mut'ah marriage. You could marry a woman with the agreement that it was a limited marriage. Then, there's no longer what? Why not? Because the hadith clearly states that the Prophet allowed the mut'ah. Someone says in Sahih Muslim is right there. You said it's been what? Abrogated, cancelled. The Prophet, he made it haram until the day of judgment. Everybody understand this? Any other example that you want to think about? So therefore, he says that this chapter is going to discuss the concept of this thing being what? Cancelled, abrogated, done away with. And there was one time in which if two people had sexual intercourse and the man did not reach a climax of the woman, they got up, they walked away, they finished, they did not have to make a ghusl. They didn't have to what? Make a ghusl. That is no longer the ruling, despite what many 9-to-5 Muslims do today. This is a problem. In many cultures, they think that this is the ruling. It's only ghusl when it's what? And that's wrong. That's incorrect. Everybody clear on this? And they say, or he says here in the chapter, وَوُجُوبِ الْغُسْلِ بِالْتِقَاءِ الْخِتَانَيْن. And that ghusl is mandatory when there's something called iltiqa al-khitanain. Iltiqa al-khitanain. When two khitans, when two makhtun, when two places of khatan or ikhtitan meet up. In other words, what's meant by iltiqa al-khitanain is the head of the penis and the clitoris of the woman. When he inserts his penis inside of her vagina, the ghusl is now what? Mandatory. Why is it called khitan? Because in most cases, or as it should be, the man has been circumcised. And the woman has also been circumcised. So he has a khitan, circumcision. She has a khitan, circumcision. When these two circumcised parts meet up, when the head, the tip of the penis is missing, is gone. Everybody understand this? What is remaining is the what? The skin that what? The part that the skin used to be. Everybody understand this? Is what? Khitan. Everybody got this? It's no longer visible. Everybody understand this? It's no longer what? Pay attention. It's no longer what? It's no longer visible anymore. The part on her has come in direct contact with the part on him. His skin has come in contact with what? Her skin. He says now the ghusl is now what? Mandatory. 5 seconds. It's all long it took. He inserted his sexual organ into hers. He got up. Got an important phone call. They got into an argument. She said something to upset him. Whatever the case may be. Everybody understand this? This is a reality. This is a reality of life. Okay? The fiqh is supposed to be what? Real. Practical and real. Day-to-day fiqh in New York City. Not in some far-off country somewhere in the mountains of Pakistan. No. Fiqh is not made to be like that. It was never made to be like that. It was made to be practiced. Allah only sent down the Kitab and the Sunnah for them to be what? Practiced and implemented. Everybody understand this? And that's another issue we want to go over on the topic. And it's not just the mountains of Pakistan. Anywhere. Most people today, when they teach fiqh, a fiqh book, a fiqh class, it's some weird technical stuff. That the way they speak, how they write, in most cases, is like, what is this? You can't even decipher it. Let alone studying and analyzing issues that do not take place on a daily basis. And most people, when they won't talk about this, no, you can't say that. You should be shy. It's embarrassing. They'll neglect the issues that happen, what? Every day. A married man, husband, every couple of days, whatever the case may be, has having intercourse with his wife. They'll neglect that. But they'll talk about some far-fetched issue that only pertains to a handful of Muslims. And that's deception. And that's a cheater. The mufti who teaches the people like that is a cheater. He's not nasih. He hasn't been honest with his subjects, with his followers. So therefore, this was meant by this concept of khitan. Everybody understand this? We've also explained before what's meant by khitan of the male, and people have asked this question on the website as well several times, the proper way of circumcision. The skin that covers the head of the penis is to be totally removed. And with regards to khitan, circumcision of a woman, the scholars, they say it is a small piece of the top of her clitoris. Removal of the entire clitoris. Removal of the labia. Removal of this and of that. Sewing and stitching. Mutilation, genital mutilation of women is not what's meant by what? Khitan. Everybody got this? That is not Islam. That's not Islam. That's culture of somebody in Afghanistan or somebody in Somalia. That's your cultural practice. That's nothing to do with Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this? We said this before. Genital mutilation is not from the deen of al-Islam. Everybody understand this? Rather, bel. We say rather. The ahadith pertaining to the khitan of a woman are all extremely weak. None of them are authentic. Period. And the strongest dalil that those ulama who hold the view that it's recommended, or some of them may even say it's obligatory, the strongest proof that they have that's authentic is these hadith that says إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ, when the two what? Khitans meet. In other words, the Prophet spoke to the Sahaba to something that was what? Aywa, something that they were doing, something they had did. And it was a well-known and established practice that a man was circumcised and a what? A woman was circumcised. Obviously, this hadith has nothing to do with wujub, it being mandatory. Rather, bel, we say, as one brother, Allah yahfadhu, may Allah preserve him, had asked me outside of Masjid Taqwa, brother, he said, what? Sheikh, doesn't this prove that it's recommended? Say no, abadan. It has nothing to do with recommendation. It's ليس في إلا مجرد الإخبار الشيء المعهود عندهم فقط. Something that is customary to them, something that was practiced to them, that a woman was circumcised. And that's it. Hadith has nothing to do with it being recommended or mandatory. Those ulama hold the view that female circumcision is recommended. They say that it takes away from her sexual desire. And they say if she's left in the manner in which she's born, then it's known that she'll have a very high sexual desire. She'll be hypersexual. And that is going to be a mafsada. They say that's a problem with regards to chastity, with regards to masturbation, with regards to her husband not pleasing her husband, have to travel for jihad, for hajj, and she's hypersexual. But they say if a piece of it is cut off, she keeps her desires. She can have desires. There is stimulation, but it's controllable. This is what they say. Everybody understand this? That's with regards to female circumcision. That argument and that discussion has nothing to do with is in the news and the media today. Some people, they'll leave Islam. I apostated, the person, she says, وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ, I left Islam because they were mutilating people in my country, in Somalia. Who was mutilating the people? Who? The ulama of the Sunnah and Hadith? Those who had knowledge? Or people that were, إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا أَبَاءَنَا, we found our fathers what? On the way, and we followed them. وَإِنَّا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ, we will follow them. Huh? Who doing that? Is Quran say this? Hadith? Sahih Bukhari? Sahih Muslim? No. Most people, when they leave Islam, Allahu Alam, many people, if not most, they leave Islam for cultural reasons that they think are Islamic reasons. Honor killings are not from the Sharia. That's culture. Everybody understand this? A woman walk behind her husband is what? That's culture. A mother controlling the family from across the seas. You can't, no one can live in his house except for Fulan and Fulan. That's what? That is not his sunnah. It's not kitab al-sunnah. Everybody understand that? So that's with regards to female circumcision. Those ulama who say that it's permissible, those who say it's recommended, those who say that it's mandatory, they're not talking about what? GMF. Everybody clear on that? So we're done with that. As far as male circumcision, as we have explained before as well, some of the ulama say it's mandatory, wajib. And they say that a man must be circumcised, whether he's a baby, whether he's 7 years old, or even if he's a grown man. And they have several proofs and evidences for this. From those proofs and evidences is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas and the Sahih that Ibrahim alayhi salam اختتنا بعدما أتى عليه 80 أو كما قال. He says Ibrahim was circumcised after he reached the age of 80. And they also say Ibn Abbas said that these were from the kalimat alati, these from the words that Allah tested Ibrahim. وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. Allah tested Ibrahim with things. And from the things that Allah tested Ibrahim with was to do what? Circumcise. He was an old man, gray hair, circumcise yourself. Will you do it or not? Or Ibrahim alladhi wafa, Allah says. Abraham who fulfilled his covenant with his Lord, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody understand this? So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was tested by Allah to slaughter his son, to do this, to do that. And from the things he was slaughtered, or he was tested with, was to do what? Circumcise himself. And Allah clearly tells us in the Quran to do what? ثُمَّ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَأَكْمِلْ. Allah says, then we revealed to you, O Muhammad, we told you and your followers to do what? أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ, to follow the way of Abraham. Everybody clear with this? So they say this is one of the proofs that male circumcision is what? Mandatory. Another proof, they say that it is an issue of cleanliness and hygiene. And the Muslim man and the Muslim woman as well, but we're talking about Muslim men, they are to have utmost cleanliness and hygiene. You're supposed to be clean and not dirty and not filthy. Whether it pertains to shaving pubic hair, or making a ghusl, making istinja, cleaning yourself with water, with this, that, not using your right hand. They say that hygiene. And they say when a male is uncircumcised, sometimes there is traces of urine, there's filth, there's dirt that remains on his body, it gets on his clothes, let alone irritation, inflammation, problems to his hygiene in his own self. So they say that ma la yutimmu bihi, ma la yutimmu al-wajib bihi, they say that the thing that the wajib cannot be done with is now what? Wajib. The thing that is wajib. And it can only be done through another thing, then that second thing becomes wajib. Everybody understand this? So this is what they say. And other ulama, they have the exact opposite view. And they say the khitan is not mandatory. Such as Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, from the greatest of the ulama of the tabi'een. He said, أَدْرَكَ الْعَجَمُ الْعَرَبُ الْعَجَمُ. He says, al-aswad wal-ahmar. He says all of the people accepted Islam. People came willingly, people that were fought and subdued, then they later on accepted Islam, their children. He says the Arabs, the non-Arabs accepted Islam. And we don't know of the Prophet ﷺ commanding them to do what? Circumcise themselves. So Hasan al-Basri and others, they said that we don't know of a hadith in which the Prophet what? Told them. And we've seen what? He said, the black and the white accept Islam. We've seen scores and scores, loads of men what? Accept Islam. And we don't know of him telling the people what? Everybody understand this? Also the concept of exposing aura, the price, danger, etc. So it's khilaf among the ulama. Just like it's khilaf among the ulama with regards to the woman's circumcision. Everybody understand this? There's no doubt the male circumcision is like night and day with the woman's circumcision. Night and day, total different concept. Cleanliness, is no doubt about that. Woman's circumcision is total different issue. The male circumcision, those who say that's wajib, clear, strong. Everybody understand this? So therefore, and there's another issue pertains to this is what? Is the concept of the ghusl. When you accept Islam, do you have to make a ghusl? I remember vividly, my young days, somebody come to the masjid, he accepts Islam, the first thing you do, give him the shahada, No, you got to change his name first. You change your name, and then make a ghusl. Not saying that it's a bad thing to change your name. That's another concept. The people today, it's a different concept. The concept is that making a ghusl. When the Prophet ﷺ traveled, when the Sahaba traveled, when they fought, when they gave da'wah, when they wrote letters, did they tell the people to do what? Make ghusl. You have to wash. So that's one of the proofs that those ulama hold the view, saying that it's not mandatory. Khayr inshallah, moving forward. So that's what's meant by this what? This chapter heading. 2 khitans touch. Everybody understand this? Everybody got this or not? No. Clear? You clear, Yaqi? I don't read faces. You clear or not? Tahir, inshallah. The hadith is number 199. Hadith Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا جلس بين شعبها الأربع ثم جهدها فقد وجب الغسل. Hadith 199 states, narrated Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, when a man sits in between the 4 parts of a woman, where is the explanation of that? The brackets, the parentheses. This is a consistent style in this translation of Sahih Bukhari in the translation of the Noble Quran, the meanings of the Noble Quran, some things that are extremely clear and lucid, it's 3, 4, 5 different lines of interpretation. Things that are unclear, vague to the English reader, what does it mean, her 4 parts? Everybody understand this? And the chapter heading has how many brackets in it, Jeremy? Which of the 2 is easier to understand? Everybody understand this? That's a problem. So the hadith says in English, when a man sits in between the 4 parts of a woman and did the sexual intercourse, that's also vague as well. Because I understand in English, he did sexual intercourse. He finished. Everybody understand this? It says here, bath becomes compulsory. Ghusl becomes compulsory, whether it's a bath or not. Shower, washing up in a bin, cauldron, by the river. Everybody understand this? A bath is a specific way of what? Washing. So this hadith, the English leaves the reader generally what? Confused. Right. Hadith number 199. We explained as well. Abu Hurairah narrated, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا جَلَسَ بَيْنَ شُعَبِهَا الْأَرْبَعِ. When a man sits between her 4 parts, her legs, her thighs, al-muhim, a man commences sexual intercourse. And that's a long discussion in itself. That's brought up by Ibn Qayyim and many, specifically Ibn Qayyim, with regards to sex and the positions that are recommended and disliked for husband and wife. It was a very long discussion in the Prophet's medicine, in which he talked about that in detail. Everybody understand this? This hadith obviously supports Ibn Qayyim and others as well. Whereas it says, إِذَا جَلَسَ, when he sits between. In other words, she's on her back. Everybody understand this? In most cases. Khayran inshallah, that's another fa'idah. He says here, ثُمَّ جَهَدَهَا, then he makes juhd or jahd, similar to jihad. He moves, he exerts efforts. فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسْلِ, then the ghusl is now what? Mandatory. This is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Outside of Sahih Bukhari, in Sahih Muslim, fi riwayatin, the narration says, وَإِن لَمْ يُنزِلْ, even if it what? Even if he doesn't. Even if he what? Even if he doesn't. This hadith is saying abrogated the hadith that said what? In English. What's the hadith in English? Just in English, not in Arabic. The hadith that said what? What's the hadith that this hadith abrogated another hadith, which was what? In English.
When they meet, when the 2 parts meet?
Nah, that's the same. That's another narration, but the same meaning. La, what's the wording of the hadith in English? No, the wording, the specific wording of the hadith is what? Water is from? Water. The water is from what? Water. The water of the ghusl comes after the water of the? Everybody got it? Keep things simple. And the other hadiths as we explained as well. Right. Another problem is, it says here, إِذَا جَلَسَ بَيْنَ شُعْبِهَا الْأَرْبَعِ وَمَسَّ الْخِتَانُ الْخِتَانَ. Okay, the chapter heading says, one khitan touches what? The other khitan. The hadith here doesn't say anything about khitan. And that is because that is a version in Sahih Muslim. The chapter headings are from Sahih Muslim. The hadiths are from Bukhari and Muslim. Khayr inshallah. Moving forward. We explained that. And the ruling also applies with regards to a woman as well. With one exception. According to what some of the fuqaha say, and that is when there's a barrier. When there's a what? A barrier, such as a condom. Such as a condom. A man places on a condom, he engages in sexual intercourse, and he does not reach ejaculation. Based off of that, his khitan touched her what? It didn't. His khitan didn't touch her khitan. Everybody understand this? A piece of latex touched her khitan. Everybody understand the fiqh or not? No. His skin literally did not touch her skin. So if he did not finish and reach climax based off of this, he does not have to perform the what? The ghusl. He doesn't have to make the what? Ghusl. This is a technical issue that has nothing to do with zina. Okay? It's saying that zina is permissible, as some person said. It has nothing to do with zina. We're talking about husband and wife now. The man uses a condom. His khitan does not what? Touch her khitan. And he also didn't? So based off of that, he wouldn't have to make? Everybody understand this? That's one way of understanding it. Another way of understanding this issue is that the Prophet ﷺ only meant by إذا ومس الختان الختان or إذا التقى الختانان, when the two khitans touch. Another way of understanding it is the Prophet only meant by that is what? الدخول. عبارة عن إيش؟ دخول فقط. وليس يعني حقيقة ختان بالختان. Another way of understanding this hadith is that the Prophet, what he meant by this was penetration. And not specifically this piece of skin and that piece of skin. That the Prophet specifically meant what? Penetration. So if it's the second interpretation of the hadith, intercourse with a condom without ejaculation would also necessitate ghusl. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this or not? Tight. Khayr, inshallah. There are other branches with regards to this hadith and this ruling, different types of intercourse, such as anal sex. Not saying that that's permissible, but if a person made anal sex and he didn't ejaculate, does he have to make ghusl? The khitan, his khitan did not touch her khitan. Everybody understand how the fiqh, what? The fiqh does what? It branches off. How the fiqh what? Branches off. One's asal, and from there the other surah. Kada, kada, kada. Everybody understand this? Any other issue that you want to deal with? Tayyib? Khayr, inshallah, moving forward. Sorry. There are many side issues. We won't take any more for now with regards to this, which are important. We'll only deal with them if people ask about them, and if not, we won't deal with them, especially not tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Jazakumullahu khairan.